Hello, good evening. Welcome to the stream tonight. So tonight's going to be slightly different from what has come before. Evening, Maurice. Good to have you here again. So rather than working on something to do with chocolatey or something to do with cake or some of the other topics that we've discussed on the stream, what I'm going to talk about tonight is a kind of a secret, right? It's a project that myself and Matthias Carlson, also known as DevLead on Twitter, have been discussing for must be about a month now. We've been discussing backwards and forwards about a few things. So we're not ready at this point to announce it, if you like, mainly because it doesn't do anything yet. But Matthias has been working on the back end of this application that we've codenamed devgep, and you can use your imagination as to why it's called that. But so the project is codenamed devgep, and he's been working on the back end, which is a bunch of Azure functions that do a bunch of stuff. And where I'm going to come in, hopefully, is the creation of the front end of it, so a website. You could argue, Maurice, that getDev would have been better, but I went with the alphabet, and I said that D comes before G. So I went devgep. So the front end of this site, or this service, let's call it, is going to be an ASP.NET MVC application. So I have done, in the past, I've done lots and lots and lots. G is in front of M. Well, I can't argue with that. But I can't argue with that. G is in front of M. I went with our Twitter handles. So I used to do a lot of ASP.NET. I used to be a moderator on an ASP.NET forum, specifically around web forms. And then I jumped to MVC. I did a little bit of MVC there, but I haven't really done a lot of front-end ASP.NET MVC applications since it moved to core. So I have played with some existing apps and kind of added things to an existing site, but I've never really played with one from the beginning. So this will be an interesting thing to walk through to see how we can build up that ASP.NET site. And specifically what I'm trying to achieve tonight is I want to get a new site up and running, but I also want to muck around a little bit with the authentication system that I can use with that site. Specifically, I would like to add in the ability to authenticate using GitHub. So rather than having to provide a username and password specifically to log into the site, I want to provide the ability to click on a link to authenticate with GitHub and then come back to the site and have it all work. And then the other thing I'd like to try to achieve tonight, might or might not be possible, is to use a different storage mechanism for the user counts that are created as part of that site. So out of the box, when you create a new ASP.NET site, it adds everything into a local Sqlite database. So it's a small footprint, it doesn't have much overhead, but it's using Entity Framework and to add the entries and pull them back. I want to try and flip that out and use Azure Storage rather than an actual database. Okay, so those are the kind of two things I want to play with. So to facilitate that, what I want to install is the Azure Storage emulator, because I want to play with that locally. So rather than having to deploy something onto Azure to test it out, I want to run that locally on my development machine here. So this link here downloads this MSI. So I'm just going to go ahead and click and install on this and get this installed. Now, normally I would do a Choco install. I think that's what Maurice is pointing out here. I couldn't find one, Maurice. There isn't one for the standalone installer for the Azure Storage emulator. So there's not one, right? But there is one for the other tool which I want to install, which is the Azure Storage Explorer. So I should be able to walk up here and do Choco install Microsoft. If I can spell it properly, Microsoft, what's the title? I forgot what the name was. It's fully qualified, I think. Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer. So if I go ahead and install that, so that'll give me the two tools that I need in order to test that out. Test out what I want to do. Okay, so with those two tools installed, I should be able to create an Azure Storage blob locally, or an Azure Storage table locally, and also play with the queues that kind of live in Azure. Yeah, I thought the same, Maurice. It's quite a long, and I don't think we need the Microsoft on it anymore either. So it's maybe a case for. So what Maurice is pointing out there is that this name doesn't really follow the guidelines set out when you're naming a Sqlite package. This would best be named as Azure-Storage-Explorer, so it kind of breaks up those words. So yeah, Maurice is absolutely correct. And you want me to send the details? I can send you the details. The details are here. I will copy this and I'll paste it over here in Git. And I'll do that. And the other one that I might send you is this one. Copy and paste. Okay. So with those two things installed, let's wait for them to finish. So what I want to do is I want to create a website, right? Now, historically, back when I did ASP.NET Web Forms, I would have went into Visual Studio and I would have said file new project and I would have picked what I wanted, yada yada yada. So we're in the brave new world of doing everything from the .NET CLI now. So what I can do instead, so I've created this temp folder called devgep, and I'm going to go ahead and do I'm going to go ahead and do .NET new. Okay, so if I run that, it comes with a bunch of predefined templates, and I can run those to create a website, and I can also pass in some additional parameters into that call to make it do things. So as an example here, I can say .NET new with auth individual. So that's essentially what I want to do. I want to have an ASP.NET MVC application with individual authentication. Right? So if I go ahead and run that, and then I will open up Visual Studio Code and see what we get out of it. Now, if I do code.here, we will see a bunch of files. So it should have created for me things like some views, some controllers, lots of good stuff. Okay, so all of that's great. Now, if I go back over here and do .NET Run, we should be able to spin up that site. It will be hosted in the locally running web server, and then I'll be able to browse it. So far, so good, hopefully. Let's see if this works. I should have got an output saying where it was running it. So let's see what happens. It's taking a bit longer than I would have expected. Let's do Task Manager and see what's happening. 73%. Chrome is... I don't think I've got 12 Chrome tabs open. Oh, there we go. Just doing stuff now. Okay, so now it's saying it's listening on port. So it's listening on an non-HTTPS on 5000, and it's running on 5001 for HTTPS. So let's grab that and open up a new tab and see what we've got. So we get a error, which is expected. That's a nice error. That nice error is basically saying you're using a self-signed certificate. I don't trust it implicitly because I haven't added that certificate to my local store. So I'll have to click on the advanced button and say proceed to localhost unsafe. Now, if you were browsing the internet and that happened, don't ever do that. But this is me running localhost with a self-signed certificate. It's all good, right? So out of the box, we've got a bunch of stuff straight away. So it's taken the name devgep and it's done some stuff. It's got some privacy usage for cookies, so we can say accept that. We can click on the login. We haven't got any additional service over here. We've just got the local one, which is to be expected. But I could walk over here and say register with Bob at bob.com and give him a password. That is something. And we should be able to register that. There we go. So I'm now logged in as Bob. So that will have created a user account in that local Sqlite database. And now if I stop the site, if I log out of here and I stop this and then stop this, if I go back and run it again, it will remember that user. So it's not that it's persisted it locally, it's that it's persisted it into that database. So if I go back over here and look again at 5001, then I would be able to walk up to here and say bob at bob.com and with the password that I put in, which is there. Okay, so we're back in as Bob. Okay, so that's great. Now, if we go back and look at the login page, it actually tells us up here, use another service to log in. And that's exactly what I want to do. And if I click on this link, and let's just have a look and see at this link that Maurice has sent through to me. Let's have a look and see. I think I know what it is, but let's bring it up. So Maurice has created an issue on his Chocolatey Packages repository for the Azure Storage Emulator. I'm going to give that a big thumbs up. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maurice. I appreciate it. So I looked at this article earlier today, and it actually links me to some other providers for adding in additional authentication. So the authentication that I'm interested in is GitHub. So if I click on this OAuth provider, then what I should get to is the one that I've got open here, which is this one. So this one is a list of additional OAuth providers that you can add into your ASP.NET MVC application. And it's, when you look at it, it's relatively simple. All you've got to do is take this code and stick it in, and automatically you will get the ability to sign in with GitHub. So that's exactly what I want to try and do. Now, again, this is a world apart from what I would have had to do with an ASP.NET Web Forms application, but it's all part of the re-architecturing that comes with ASP.NET MVC core. So I want to give this a try. Now, I'm going to need a client ID and a client secret. Now, I can get that from GitHub, and I'm going to need that from GitHub. But in order to make use of that on this stream, I don't necessarily want you fine people to see what those credentials are. Because although I can trust you, I don't trust you. So I don't want to provide those details on the stream. So I want to add them as environment variables on my machine, right? So the way that I can do that is using this other pretty cool thing that comes. Really? Can you trust the internet? Of course I can. A lot of fine people out on the internet, on both sides. That's a quote from Mr. Trump. I probably shouldn't get political on this old stream here. What I wanted to talk about there was this other thing that you get for free from .NET Core. So not just ASP.NET, but .NET Core is this iConfiguration object. So my understanding is, and I've played with this in another project, so I kind of know roughly what's going on here. This iConfiguration object gives you access to pretty much any configuration source that you can think of. So whether it is environment variables, whether it is an INI file, and web.config file, anything that you can think of, and you can create your own configuration providers as well. And that's where I've played with it. that configuration object gives you access to all of those environment variables. So what we can do, rather than do what was being shown here, which is to kind of directly couple the client ID to this thing, we should be able instead to create an environment variable that can be read at execution time and provide that as an environment variable. So if I were to, now I'm trying to think what I've got in my environment variables before I open that window. I want to create an environment variable that has those things in it. Or I'm going to create an environment variable called GitHub client secret and GitHub client ID, and into there I'm going to put my variables, and then I'm going to read them as part of the execution of my site. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to go up here to github.com, and if I go to my settings, which is over here, what I should have over here is the ability to create. Is it under developer settings? Is that where I saw it? Yes. So I can create a new OAuth app. Now, when I do that, it will give me the client ID and the client secret, right? And Maurice is warning me to be careful. I am going to be careful because I can't remember when, but a few streams back, I made the unfortunate error of showing some information that I didn't necessarily want the internet to see, and I had to quickly reset some tokens across the internet. So I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm going to try very hard not to make that mistake again. So in here, I'm going to say devgep. Now, when you're creating this OAuth application, and you can edit these things after the fact, which is great, but these things kind of are coupled to your running website. So if you had published this to Azure and you had a URL, or you're using a custom domain name, that's the information that you would put in here. But because I'm running locally on this environment, that's the URL that I need to put in here. So I'm going to click on, I'm going to put that in there, and I'm going to say that the callback URL, which is where you want, once the authentication request has went to GitHub, where do you want GitHub to send you back again? And I want it to send me back to the same place, right? Now, if I click register application here, it's then going to pretty much immediately show me the environment variables, or the client ID and the client secret. So at this point, I am going to disappear, and I'm going to bring up my kind of waiting window, and I'm going to take that client ID and that client secret, and I'm going to put them into environment variables, and then I'm going to come back. So if you give me a couple of minutes, I will be back, and I will have done what I just said, right? So give me a couple of minutes. Okay, so I am back, and I have done exactly what I just said. I have created that OAuth app on GitHub, and I have taken the client ID and the client secret that it gave me, and I've added them to environment variables on this machine. And then from there, I'm going to read those from the configuration object that I have access to. And from there, I should be able to reconfigure this to use. It's not test, it's time. I should be able to reconfigure this to use GitHub authentication rather than just the username and password authentication. So let's do .NET Run again. or before we do that, let's go to code. So what the sample told us about was that this is what we need. We need to add some authentication. So if we grab this and we go back to Visual Studio Code, then there in here we should be able to put this. Now that add GitHub is getting a red squiggly straight away, but that's because we haven't added in the package reference that we need. And it tells us about that earlier on the page. We need to add a reference to the NuGet package that we want to use. So in the case of GitHub, I need to use the, let's find it. Let's grab this part. Let's go to not GitHub. Let's go to nuget.org. I'm going to paste this in, and I'm fairly sure it's just called .github at the end. So this is the package that we need, and it's currently at version 2.10. So if we go back up here and go into our CS.proj file, and we're going to add a new package reference, and that package reference is going to be let's paste what I had on my clipboard. I'm going to say .github, and then that's going to be version equals, and then what did I say it was? 2.10, 2.1.0. And then let's end that closing bracket there. Okay. So that's then going to prompt to say that I haven't restored all packages because I added a new package reference. So all I did there was click restore. And now when I go back to here, this should go away. There we go. So that's now gone. Now rather than hard coding, if we go back up to the startup up here, this iConfiguration object is passed in through the IOC container, and then it is set to this public member property that we have access to. So we should then be able to access that. So then we can do configuration dot, I'm fairly sure that what we can do is just this. So we're going to say GitHub client ID, and we're going to get rid of that. And then in here, we're going to say configuration again. Where did that go? Configuration GitHub client secret. Okay. So I did actually test this part. So I tested the part of actually running the authentication through GitHub, but I didn't test it doing it this way. So this may or may not work. So let's give this a try. So having added that, the other thing that the documentation wanted me to add was the example here. Where did it go? The example was here to say use authentication. I already have that on because I think that was added as part of the template that was created. So that part's already done for us. So if we go back to here and say .NET run, then what should happen is that when I go to login, I should have another option now. So if I go back over here and say refresh this, so now we have another option in here, which is to log in with GitHub rather than our username and password. So in theory, if I wanted to only allow authentication with GitHub, then I could remove this part. Or if I wanted to add in Facebook or Twitter or whatever, then I could go back to here and get one of the other providers. So if we look at the ones that supported here, then there's lots of them. There's, is there a Twitch one? There is a Twitch one, yes. So if you wanted to authenticate over OAuth with Twitch, you could definitely do that. There's lots in here. I'm only really interested in the one at the minute, which is GitHub. So I'm going to stick with that one just now, right? But if we go back to here and I say, click on this, I should get directed to GitHub, which is asking me then to authorize the OAuth application that I created, which is called devgep, and then it's scoped at when you do an app like this, you can scope at how much information you get backwards and forwards. So it's got limited access to public data, which is kind of what I want, and I want to authorize that. So now if I go back to here, it should redirect me back to my locally running application, which it did. And then what I'm asked for is to associate your GitHub account with kind of a piece of information that is stored locally on my site. So in this one, I could, again, so I did Bob at bob.com before, so let's do Bill at bill.com, register. And now I'm signed in as that user. And I have the information, any of the information that come back from GitHub, I would have access to that at the point of creating that account. So I would have a unique ID for that user. So that is it. That is me now got a fully working website that has GitHub authentication. So again, the mind boggles on how much work I would have had to do that with ASP.NET Web Forms back in the day. That was lots, right? So I think this is quite good, right? But again, if we go back to here, all of that information currently is in this thing here, right? I want to not, the next thing I want to do is to not use that app.tp file. I want to use a different storage mechanism. I want to use Azure Table Storage to store this data rather than this Sqlite database here, right? And I want to do that for reasons. The larger architecture of this thing, this project that myself and Matthias are working on, pretty much everything is in Azure Table Storage. So it makes sense to also put the information that's stored in this site in there as well, right? So that's kind of why we're doing it. So what I need to do is I need to figure out a way that I can not use, because I saw it up here earlier. This here is using a specific connection to SQLite, and it's saying use SQLite and get this connection string and use entity framework stores, yada yada yada. So this is it configuring the local identity provider to use that information or to store its information in here. So I want to augment that and use Azure Table Storage. So the question that Maurice is asking there is, you can't use the email attached to GitHub. So the answer to that is I probably could. Now, what you saw there was the built-in flow that happens. So it's almost likely that if I were to look at this identity user, then it wants it would want it's on here. So if we look here, then probably one of the pieces of required data is the email address, which would uniquely identify that user. So the flow that I use there, you might not have an email address from the authentication provider that you're using. It just so happens that GitHub probably does have that, but what I would need to do is probably step into that flow to explicitly specify that I want to use the email that comes back from GitHub. That causes potentially a little bit of problem because GitHub can have more than one email address associated with it. So bottom line is I think I could do that, but that's something I'll need to look into. But for now, really all I'm worried about is the fact that it worked. I'll be honest, right? I can dig into that later, I think, right? So what I want to do is I want to replace some of this stuff with something else, right? Now that's something else. So I did some digging again on this. And what I found after a very quick Google was this guy. So this guy, who I think is, David Melendez, has this project called the Identity Azure Table. And if we look through the website here, then what this claims to be able to do is to do exactly what I want. So if I click on this, it tells me exactly what I need to do in order to switch away from using the built-in provider and instead use Azure Table Storage, right? So I'm going to follow this. I haven't done this part. We're now into the realm of uncharted territory now. So this could go horribly wrong, or it could just work. So bear with me. Now, the first thing I wanted to check was whether I have the Storage Explorer, which I do. So that's this guy. So this is the guy that we installed at the start of the stream. So what this should give me access to is two things. It should either allow me to connect to an Azure subscription and look at the Azure storage and queues that I have in the cloud, or it should be able to let me run against the local emulator that we also installed. So let's see what happens when I open this guy up. Okay, so it's telling me about some release notes. That's good. It's telling me about some subscriptions that I have on my account, which is there, which is fine. If I look at local, then we've got the emulator, so it is there. And then we've got tables, which there probably shouldn't be any of. Unable to receive. Let's see what happens if I create a new one. Can I create a new one? Test. Table. Do I need to start the storage emulator? I wonder. Storage. I wonder if I have to start it. That's maybe what we needed to do. So that's now running, methinks. Sorry, Marie said, if I did not know any better, I would say it is VS Code. Oh, you're talking about the adage. I believe it is using the same Electron shell. Yes, so it's likely very similar. Now, what's this doing? So this command line tool, Azure Storage Explorer, is erroring. The Storage Explorer needs to be initialized. Hit init. Run init. Oh, I'm happy to run init. Azure Storage Emulator init. Oh, that's what it just did. Do I need SQL Server? Interesting. Okay, this wasn't expected. Anyone in the chat room familiar with Azure Storage Emulator? No available SQL instance was found. So it was probing for SQL Express. It was looking for local DB. I don't have local DB installed, I don't think. So which is the lesser of two evils? Which one would I? Probably local DB. Install SQL Server local DB. Microsoft SQL Server. What's this one? I guess I should check to see if it's there. I'm sure Maurice is probably already doing it for me. Oh, David has a chocolate package for that. For local DB? I think you might be right. There's Fervent Coders one. But that looks like it's an older one. SQL local DB. There's Reasonbox one. Might take that one. Let's give this guy a try, shall we? Let's see what happens. Let's give it a try. Let's stop this. Choco install SQL local DB. Is that what it was called? SQL local DB. When was this updated? It's a little bit older. Let's give it a try. see what happens. Seems to be downloading some stuff. Downloading. Installing SQL local DB. Looks promising so far. Been installed. Beautiful. I think you're right about 2017. I think I'm okay with that. So let's run init again. Let's see if it can't find. Ooh, look at that. Creating database, Azure Storage emulator on instance MS SQL local DB. So that looks a little bit more promising. Error. Cannot create database. The database does not exist. Supply a valid name. You know what? Let's close these since they were installed from underneath it. Create some. Are you referring to the earlier package that you said you were going to create for me, Maurice? Is that what you were talking about there? So let's go back to here. For the Azure Storage Explorer. No, for the Azure Storage Emulator package. Is that what you're talking about? Storage accounts, emulator, tables. Still got an error. Okay. Let's try this again. Emulator. This is where you need a Matthias on the call to figure out what's going on. Error. Oh, I just did that. But let's try. Okay, so if all else fails, let's grab that guy and let's sudo it. CD into there. Give that a quote. Give that a quote, and then do Azure Storage Emulator in it. Come on. Cannot create. Supply a valid database name to see available databases. Resolve these errors. This was meant to be simple. Cannot create database Azure Storage Emulator DB59. What does that bring up in old Google? There's a Stack Overflow post here. And then the answers is to manually create. Oh, yeah. Force create. Let's see this. Force create. So this post is saying that I need to install SQL Server Management Studio and manually create it. I don't really want to have to do that. Let's have a quick look and see what it created. So I'm fairly sure that it creates itself as a service. So let's have a look. SQL. Nope. It's called local. That's very strange. I was sure that it created itself as a service. You know, I'm almost tempted just to. Yeah, no, I can do that, but that's not a small installation. It'll take a while to run that. I had that same thought, but it's not a small thing to get installed. But I guess there's no harm in doing it. The solution is not recommended in general, but you can try it. I think Azure Storage Emulator by somehow cannot full access local DB. I mean, we can let that run, but I would have preferred it to have just worked, if I'm honest. And if we're going to go to that extreme, we could just install SQL Server Express as well, because it's also available as a NuGet package. Chocolate package, you mean. I'm also trying to see where it's created some of these files. So we go here and go here and go here. No, it hasn't created anything there. Azure Storage Emulator stop. It's already stopped. Clear. Okay. Init force create. I've just seen the tweet that you sent out to Matthias. Maurice. Oh, that's not good. What was that? It's a 1603. I need to reboot. Fine. Maybe that'll help as well. Let's reboot this VM. See, things never go the way you want them to. Let's let that reboot, and then we'll try running the emulator again and see if it doesn't just work. If it doesn't, then we can try and install SQL Server Management Studio again. Come on. So for those of you who don't know, this is what I'm running here is a Vagrant virtual machine. And I use that for purposes of my stream. So rather than running and installing and breaking things on my host machine, I do it on a VM, and then if and when I need to, I can throw that VM away and start from scratch. So that's what's rebooting currently, and that's why the username is Vagrant, because I'm not very imaginative when it comes to things like that for throwaway machines. So let's just get this lined up a little bit so that it's looking better in the Twitch window or the OBS window. There we go, a bit better. So let's go back to where we were, which is in C, CD into C. I'll need a quote on there. C program files, and it was in x86, Microsoft SDKs, Azure Storage Emulator, and let's do Azure Storage Emulator init, and let's see if that's able to connect and do stuff. Is it going to work? No. Okay, so out of curiosity, did that restart then make a service appear? I'm still kind of expecting to see it as a... No. Curious. Okay, so let's do Choco install, SQL Server, Management Studio again. And it's at least consistent in the sense that it's making that the database name the same each time. So if nothing else, we might be able to create it manually, and then it might be able to pick it up. So, And then Chocolatey there is then picking it. It didn't have to re-download that 500 meg file. Chocolatey then said, you've already got it downloaded. So it didn't need to do that, so it's just running off and doing the install now. But I seem to remember this install taking a while. So while that's doing that, let's reopen some of the files, pages that we had open. And we can start reading through what we actually need to do from a code perspective once we have that table storage in place. So let's open this up and go back into my... Where did that go? Oh. Let's go back into my CD, into my C temp, and it was called devgep. And then let's reopen up Visual Studio Code. Still installing. So what we needed was over on here. So what it's saying, we can start some of this process, is that we can remove some packages. Now, I think that this tutorial that I'm following is based on an earlier version of ASP.NET MVC. So some of the things it's telling me to remove, I may or may not need to remove them. But let's start the process and have a look at remove the NuGet packages entity framework and entity framework identity package from NuGet packages. Now, I'm seeing this one, which I think we'll no longer need. So I'm going to take that one out, and that will likely break a bunch of stuff. And that's okay, because we are not going to use those things anymore. So I sort of expected this one to go away, but it didn't error. So I wonder if that's in there. This one I'm not going to want, because that DB is not going to be used, which is fine. So let's have a little build and just see if there's not any errors when I remove that package. We'll also see what's going on with our installation. It's still proceeding. Store completed. And yeah, there we go. So use Sqlite. It did error. So why was Visual Studio Code not showing me that? Ah, there it is. It is now doing it. So let's remove this one, because I think we're going to want to remove that one too. Okay. So let's do that. So SQL Server Management Studio is now installed. So we should be able to find SQL Server Management Studio. Now, I don't have a full SQL Server instance installed, but we should be able to connect to the local DB instance that's running, he says. Let's have a look. See, I'm not convinced that it's... What did it say it was trying to connect to? It was saying it was trying to connect to this. So let's put this into here. So it is there. There's no database. So let's go ahead and try creating one. And we'll create it with the name that it was after, which was this one. Where did that window go? Okay. Let's see what that does. Oh my goodness, look at that. It just worked. I don't know why that didn't work. But let's have a look at my Explorer now. So Azure Storage Explorer. Let's see if that brings it up. Indeed, SSMS to the rescue. It's very curious though. That's going to bug me. I would kind of like to know why that was. So now if we go down through here, I'll tell you later what I think about you. Emulator, tables. Why is that? Do I need to start it? Oh, hold on. Now it's started. Unable to retrieve. Connection refused. Refresh. Tables. Unable to retrieve. What does that mean? Really? Close it down again. I feel I've missed something, but I don't know what that something is. See? Azure Storage Explorer unable to. That's not promising. There's a fairly recent issue. On the blob container. Getting the same error. Hold on. So someone's suggesting that if I close Storage Explorer and then let's just give this a try. Data. Roaming Storage Explorer. It's telling me to delete that puppy. Oh, we'll try it. What's the worst that could happen? Let's delete that folder. Well, I could have done that, Maurice. But it didn't seem to want to delete it anyway. Oh no, it did. Too late. Too late. You need to type faster, Maurice, to save me from myself. Storage emulator. Oh, that's not what it was. It was the... It does have a status command, which is what you were asking about. So let's see what Azure Storage emulator is running. Right, let's go back to the Explorer this time and see what this comes up with. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, look, it recreated it. So we're back to where we were. No harm, no foul. Local and attached. Storage accounts, emulator. See? No, that didn't work. I really wanted to test this locally. I really wanted to. It shows. What are you talking about there? I'm not clear on what you're referring to there. Oh, in the status output. It shows. You're referring to these ones? I guess we could test one. Invalid URL. Well, that doesn't help, does it? So what happens if I go to 10,000? Well, that doesn't bode well, does it? It says it's running, but those URLs aren't accessible. So that would appear to be a problem. It's just... No, so it's not that. Try another init force create. Sure. I'm game. Init force create. Cannot create database. Access is denied. Because, oh look, so that was the problem that someone mentioned, that MDF file is getting created with a funny username. So in here, where was it? See users. Or is it just... See, somebody mentioned that was getting created incorrectly. But then I also don't see that MDF file. Yeah, no, yeah, it's missing. But I'm also not seeing it. So where's the MDF file? It should be right there, right? C users, blah. Run as administrator. I tried that earlier, Brett, but I'm willing to give that a go as well. Init, force, create. Did I not do that? Oh, because it's now putting around PowerShell land. Nope. Oh, I can't type. Force, create. Oh, what now? Oh, I'm going round and round the circles now. Oh, so it dropped the database. What? So confused. New database. That one. Run you again. Cannot create database, create file encountered, operating system error, access is denied while attempting to open or create physical file, blah. That file is not there. Status is running. False. That file doesn't exist. Hey, how's it going, Frank? Are you familiar with Azure Storage Explorer and Azure Storage Emulator? Because I can't get it to work. Do you know how to make it work? Can you show the properties of the SQL Server via SMS? SSMS. I can't. So properties in here. No, I can't, because it's probably deleted it again. If I refresh, it's deleted it again. The one on the top. Oh, up here? The local DB. What are you wanting to see, Maurice? Database settings. Data should be in C user vagrant. Yes, Frank. So I'm attempting to work with emulator. What I want to do is I want to run Azure Storage Emulator locally, and I want to use Azure Storage Explorer to connect to it. And I want to test some stuff out locally. And right now, change the paths to C. These ones here? Oh, hold on. Let's not put it on C. What you're saying there is new folder. That's MySQL. That's a completely different world. So you want me to put this in here. I did it again. Determined to make it MySQL. You know what? I'm just going to copy this. That'll be easier. Paste. Save. You know what? I'm going to install SQL Express at this rate. No, it didn't let me save the values. Access is denied. I'm starting to think that this local DB instance isn't right. And I've got no... I don't know how to validate that, but I also don't trust it anymore. So I'm going to remove that package that we added in and I'm maybe going to try downloading it directly. SQL local DB. Because I don't know if I trust it. Oh my goodness. All I want is... really? Where's just the download for local DB? No, I did not. I installed it directly. The standalone installer for the SQL for the emulator. Oh, LocalDB is a feature of SQL Server Express. Really? If that's the case, it's just... let's download the Express. I'm just going to install Express at this rate. I'm getting annoyed at this now. Let's just install a full instance. I want basic. I just want it to work. Sure. Yeah, no, there is one for... there's a package for SQL Express. At this point, I want to see it working. I want to see it actually... let me see. Really? I need to reboot again. I'm so annoyed at this now. Reboot. You start. So, what Maurice is talking about there, I can't really show you, but I'll bring it onto my other browser. Yeah, but that's a full instance. So that package there is a full server instance as opposed to an Express edition, so it's slightly heavier weight. I'm not sure I really need... I didn't think I'd need an Express edition, if I'm honest, but let's just install it and see what happens. Because I didn't think it was going to be like this evening. Things were just meant to work. Things were meant to... I guess it's part of the fun. But it's just a little bit annoying. Close enough. It's going to annoy me. Right. So back to downloads. And we should have a SQL Server Express thing there. Let's run this again. Basic. Accept. Yes. Here we go. It's installing the Express edition. And it's downloading 275 megabytes. Let's see what happens. Let's download. Oh, I've just noticed that Frank raided me on the old Twitch there. I've never had a raid before. I really need to get these notifications set up properly so that it will inform me when these things happen, because I completely missed that. I noticed that I had a few more people in the chat room, so welcome everyone. I'm currently trying to, for those that have just joined, I'm trying to install, or rather, I'm trying to get a running instance of Azure Storage Explorer working, and I want to run it with the emulator so that I can have some Azure local storage running for testing an ASP.NET MVC website that I want to I want to create. But I've been spending the last 20 to 30 minutes trying to get that storage emulator working. It initially refused to create the database that I was trying to use, the local DB instance. That didn't work. So now I've uninstalled the local DB instance, and now I'm installing a full-blown SQL Server Express edition in the hope that that will work. So I'm going to let this finish, and I'm going to rerun the initialization of the Azure Storage emulator and see if that then kicks it into touch and gets it to work. And what Maurice is mentioning in the chat room there is that we had a running ASP.NET MVC website, and one of the first things we did was to provide an additional authentication mechanism for that website, which was to run it with GitHub authentication. And that part worked. That all just worked. And I was hoping that this part, which would be the running the storage emulator, was going to be simple. But it's either the way that I installed it or the way that it's trying to execute. Something isn't quite right. And I've kind of been fumbling. So if anyone who's just joined knows anything about setting up the Azure Storage emulator or the Azure Storage Explorer, I would welcome any comments that you might have on that. Because if this doesn't work, I don't know where to go next. Short of doing it. What? An installation package for the product Microsoft SQL Server 2012 native client cannot be found. I don't think I asked you for that, did I? See, this is... Let's see if we actually got an instance and it was just the client tools that failed. So let's run up SQL Server Management Studio. Browse for more. Oh, I don't know. Doesn't look like it actually created it. Because that one definitely creates itself as an instance. SQL Server browser. There's no SQL Server instance there. Oh, let's try it again. Let's see what happens. Specify that. Oh, no, I don't think we want to be doing that. That's now a 700 meg download. Nah. Let's cancel that and go back to basic and try running it again. And don't you download that 270 meg 5 meg again. But no, indeed. Insert facepalm icon here, Maurice. If all else fails, try it again, right? That's what they say. Nope. Oh. Why does it need that? Why does it need the SQL Server 2012 native client? SQL Server 2012 native client. Download SQL Server native client. There's a download for it. There is no... I genuinely don't know, Maurice. I've not checked. I'm Googling at the minute just to see if I can find anything. at this point, I just wanted to install. I really do. I just want to install. I really just wanted to download it and install it, but it's out to beat me at the minute. Let's give it a try. Let's just let it run. I'm genuinely perplexed at all of this so far. I mean, the thought process that I had was that, or what I should go back on and say, when I'd spoken to Matthias about this previously, it was he'd mentioned that it was part of the Azure workload for Visual Studio. Like, some of these things would install as part of that Azure workload for Visual Studio. But because I didn't have that workload installed, I was like, I'm just going to download the not that one. Where was it was the emulator. It had a standalone page. So all I did was, there was a standalone installation. So I installed this thing, and I installed this thing. And to the best of my knowledge, that's all that should be required. I know. I don't disagree with you, Maurice. But at this point, because I've not trusted, or I've not vetted those packages, I thought the best way to get this to work was to download them directly and see them installing. But they're not working either. So it's a little bit frustrating. Because, yeah, not ideal. Maybe I should have downloaded the entire SDK. That was because the Azure Storage emulator is built into the SDK. But the fact that there's a standalone installer for it, I thought, let's just go and grab that. But yeah, that didn't work. Hello, Kim. Yeah, again, you've not really missed anything. So, what you've missed is me attempting and failing to install the Azure Storage emulator and the Azure Storage Explorer. But let me be a little bit more specific. They've installed, but they don't work. Because what I'm attempting to do is I'm attempting to use a locally running Azure Table Storage for running my ASP.NET MVC website that I want to run. And as Christoph has joined as well. Hello, Christoph. But it's refusing to play. That Storage Explorer or Storage Emulator is refusing to start up. It's refusing to create the database that it needs to back everything. So pretty much what I experienced. So now you tell me. So what I'm attempting to do now is I'm attempting to install a full-blown SQL Express instance to run it, and that failed as well. and it fell on its bottom, let's say, when it attempted to install the SQL Express. So now I'm installing the full-blown thing in the hope that that will work. And yeah, there's a warning about the firewall. I don't care about the Windows firewall. I really don't. Feature selection. What do I want? I probably don't need a lot. I just want an instance. You know what? Let's put local DB in there as well. You know what? It's probably just as quick just to install it. Yeah, no, I did click on the local DB because when we ran it, it attempts to connect to both. So let's have local DB and SQL Server and see what that does. Because I just wanted to run. But what we're trying to do, for those that are just joining, what we were trying to do is I wanted to create an ASP.NET MVC website. Sure, Windows authentication, that's fine. Except just install. Really, just I'm starting to lose the will. A core ASP.NET MVC core application. And what I want to be able to do is I wanted to change the authentication mechanism used by that site to use GitHub authentication rather than anything else. So we got that part working. I was able to do that part and just by adding a couple of lines of code. Then what I wanted to investigate is whether I could change the default storage mechanism and identity provider away from the Sqlite database to use Azure Storage. So in order to do that, in order to test that, I needed to have a running instance of the Azure Storage emulator and Azure Storage Explorer. And this is where we are. We're now 40 oh my goodness, we're 50 minutes into trying to get this thing working. And I still can't get it installed. And this is all with a view to attempt to... No, that's the same error. I don't get it. Oh, I don't get it. Oh, I really don't. I don't get it. Let's pick everything. Let's pick nothing. Let's unselect everything apart from local DB and just see if that works. I don't want any of you. I don't want client tools. I just want that. I've seen, and the really annoying thing is, I've seen this working. Matthias has shown me it running on his machine, and it all works fine. But I'm a way to lose it. Oh, my goodness. SQL Server 2012 native client download. Where do I get that thing from? Cancel. Okay. Download SQL Server native client. What is QFE? Does anyone know what QFE is? Again, Maurice, I don't know if there is one or not. I've not checked. I genuinely don't know. I've got no words. None. Failed because I hired. Are you? I'm so confused. So it's not letting me install the SQL Server 2012 native client because a higher version already exists on the machine. To proceed, uninstall the higher version. So I'm so very confused. Why? If it's already installed, why? So confused. Right, fine. You've gone. Finish. I want to cry at this point. I really do. So that installed no bother. Let's try this guy again then. Let's go back to custom and see if it will let me. What? Oh, it's probably running instances of it. Fine. Yes. We'll give it that one. It was already running. So you can go away. Let's run it again. This has not been a good day. It's not a good day at the office. Download successful. Beautiful. Install a new SQL Server. Sure. Lots of things skipped. Beautiful. Love it. Next. I'm going to install a bunch of stuff. I'm going to try installing a bunch of stuff again. And all of these things. Next. Sure. Sure. Accept. Next. I don't need half of these things. I know I don't. But it should just work. Installation progress. Come on. So if again, to finish my story that I was saying, if I can get this to install and I can get the Azure Storage emulator to work, the idea is that I can modify my ASP.NET MVC application to use Azure Storage for its persistence layer rather than the default Sqlite database that it comes with. And we're doing that for reasons. So this is the first stream for the codename project that we're calling devgep. And we're not at a point where myself and Matthias want to publicize exactly what that project is, but what I'm wanting to do is starting to build out some of the front end for it incrementally. But things like this are getting in the way at the minute. But do we think that this is getting further than it got last time? It feels like that progress bar has got all the way to the end where it didn't before. What do we think? Is it going to work? Maybe. Maybe. It's taking longer to fail. Hold on. Come on. Come on. Come on. I've just got a tweet from Matthias. He's now at least still no button for. See, if I knew how to do all these things, Maurice, I would. How would I even do such a thing? I have the Stream Deck, so in theory I could make a button on my Stream Deck make a noise, but I'm not really an audio person, and I don't know how to make sure that that audio goes out through the stream. I would love to know these things. I'd love to make these things happen. Like I said, I would love to have the notification pop-ups if I get a subscription or a follower, or as Frank did earlier, a raid. If someone were to raid me, I would love to see it pop up and tell me that these things are happening. Because I don't, without checking the chat room to see these things happening, it's difficult. I don't see them. So, come on. Is it still seems to be thinking? Close out some of these. What's Task Manager doing? What's consuming its resources just now? It's still Google Chrome. You know what? I'm going to kill Chrome. See if that helps any. It is always the last 1% that takes the longest. I totally agree, Kim. Totally agree. Oh, is it changed? Is that text changed, or did I just make that up in my head? Is it actually changed away from that install config? Oh, dang it. I really hoped it had. So you believe it's finished installing, but it's creating the master databases. Is that what you think? Here he goes. Look, here's Matthias joining the stream, and he's going to tell us exactly why this isn't working. Oh, look, there is it's not running yet, but there is now a SQL Express instance. So to catch you up, don't even start with me, Matthias. This is I'm not a man to be prodded right now. So we've been attempting for the last 50 to 60 minutes to get the Azure Storage emulator and the Azure Storage Explorer working, and so far it has beaten me down into a shadow of my former self. It just doesn't work. They both install fine, but the emulator couldn't create an instance of the database using the local DB instance that I installed. We got past that by manually creating the database, but that still didn't work. So now I'm at a point where I was trying to install a full-blown SQL Server Express instance, but that failed on a number of occasions because I was missing, or it told me that the SQL Server 2012 native client wasn't installed. When it was installed. I uninstalled it and reinstalled it again, and now the installation is proceeding, and it's currently got stuck at the 99.99999% mark, and it hasn't moved for 2 or 3 minutes now. And yeah, that's that's where we are. I genuinely don't know what's going on here. And yeah, I want to cry. Because I saw this running on your machine, right? You had this storage emulator running, and the storage explorer was connecting to it, and everybody was happy. No, didn't happen. Well, no, it attempted to, but it couldn't. I then installed SQL Server Management Studio and connected to the local DB instance and manually created the table, and then ran the init command of the SQL storage emulator again, and it did something. But then when I went back into Azure Storage Explorer, it still couldn't view the tables or queues or anything within that thing. So something broke, and I have no idea what it is. And at this point, I'm kind of just sitting waiting for this thing to finish to attempt the instantiation of that storage emulator again. But now it seems to have hung. And yeah, it's not working. So can I ask what you did on your machine to install and configure the emulator and the instance? Yeah, I mean, I'm not a stranger to installing SQL Server, but I haven't seen it necessarily take this long. See, I mentioned what you said there, the install the workload, which I haven't done. What I did was I installed standalone installers for both Explorer and Emulator on the assumption that they're standalone and I could run them. But maybe that was naive. I thought about installing that too, the function SDK, but again, they're standalone installers, so I would have naively expected that I could install them and they would run standalone from anything else. But it didn't. It didn't work. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So I can go up to... Now, I'm not going to run this now because SQL Server Express is in the process of doing stuff. So, yes, it is in there in the same way that Explorer is in there too. Well, no, it attempts to start, but then it attempts to also provision a database, and it throws its hands up in the air and says, go away. But now that you're on the stream, obviously, when I do run that, it's just going to work, because that's how things go. But in this scenario, so what's wrong with 5.9? What is there a different one to 5.9? What have you got? Azure Storage. Oh, okay. Right. Well, that's the one. That's what it said, right? 5.9. Yes. Right. Okay. With you. I thought you're saying that as in, oh my goodness, you've got the wrong version number. So something still Oh, look, the SQL Server now seems to be spinning up. Yeah, it's doing stuff now. Oh, hold on, people. Hold on, folks. We've got it doing stuff. Yeah, I tried sudoing it, effectively sudoing it, and that didn't help either. Okay, so SQL Server Express is running. Right. So SQL Server Express is now running. So now in theory, if we run the emulator, let's run this puppy and see what it does this time. Start. See what it does. See what it does. Found SQL, creating database 59, and this is where it barfed before. It says, no, you're not getting into play. See this? It's the same thing. Right, Mr. Azure MVP. What's going on? I can run that as an administrator if you would prefer. Emulator. Oh, can I? Maybe not. Open file location. What is that thing? It's a shortcut. It's a shortcut too. Copy. Yeah, I can go back and try that again. The void NN. Sure, that's kind of where I was going. So I'm going to cd into there, and I'm going to say Azure Storage emulator in it. Nah. Okay, so how do I tell it to... Yeah, I know it found the local DB, so I'm wondering if I can then tell it to server localhost SQL instance SQL Express, and see if that works. Hold on. Oh, look at that. So that did something. I know I understand that, Matthias, but why can it why does it not work? Okay, so it started the emulator. Let's start the Explorer. Let's see if this now works. Let's load in. So now if we do local and attached storage accounts, emulator, tables. Oh, that errored before. That errored. Now we've got something. Test table. Look at that. Right. How hard was that? How hard was that, folks? We've now got a running sure, let's delete it. Right. So we've now got a running not SQL. We've got a running Azure Storage emulator running with the Azure Storage Explorer so that we can browse to it. So in theory, I should now be able to do what I set out to do, which was to cd into ctemp devgep and then go into code. And we should be able to attempt to change this storage to use that table, the storage emulator, rather than the Sqlite database that it comes with by default. So let's go back to that guide. I've got 13 minutes, roughly 13 minutes. I might extend it a little bit. Let's go back to this guide that we were attempting to follow, which was over here. You can close. You can close. We can close out some. You know what? Let's just close all of those. Close tabs to the right. Let's go back to this guy and have a look at this walkthrough that we were following, which was suggesting what we needed to do in order to change it out. So let's click on this, and we had removed that using statements, and we needed to add in this guy. Actually, let's just check to see if that's the most recent. Yep, going forward, Matthias, you need to be on at the start of every stream, because things started working when you appeared. I don't know what to tell you, but I have video proof that wasn't working in any way, shape, or form until you appeared on the stream. Package reference include this guy, whose version is going to be 2.1.0. Is that what it said? 2.1.0. Okay, so we're going to save that, and we're going to restore it. All good so far. Let's find out if we're using any of those. ASP net core identity. Yes. So Kim is telling me that I could have done that from the command line. I haven't. So although I've got most of the .NET tooling on my fingertips for building, restoring, that sort of thing, I haven't typically got to the point of adding packages. I don't know why. I still go back to the CSproj file to do it. I don't know why. I haven't quite got there yet. So it's telling me to remove any usage of this one. So let's take that out, see what that does. And then what do we got in here? Oh, that's the application DB context. So we don't necessarily want or need that anymore. I don't think we want this one either, but then that will probably fail that thing. Yep. That's going to be interesting to see what happens there. That's a partial, so we don't need to worry about that one necessarily just now. And then there's a schema change there, so changes to, I don't know if we've got that model, do we? Models, so there is no application user model. So does that mean we should create one? Should we create an application user? I think we should maybe create an application user. Application user. and we're going to inherit from identity server. Where did that guy go? Did it not create it? Application user. Why is that not creating that file? So confused. F5, you think? Yeah, no, it's not there. New file. Application user.cs. Strange this. Let's grab this, put this in here and say models. And then we're gonna have what he was saying, public class application user inheriting from identity user v2. It is there. Look at that. Identity user v2. Okay. Right. Fine. And then he wants us to add in this to the application DB context. So let's take out that and put this in. And then it's an identity cloud context there. And then what's it want us to do there? Is just base. So rather than doing any of this, it's just base, so without the options as well. Okay. So far, so no red. Then we need to modify the startup.cs, which was this. So let's throw these guys in. And then it's gonna do, let's do some of these things. Copy. And then where we were doing if you want to use dependency injections, you could probably have constructor overload with options as well. Okay, could maybe come back to that. One. So we had some stuff in here. So we're adding, add the default identity. What's it complaining about? Services dot add identity. It wants me to pass some things in there, I think. But it's also not. Oh, what? See, he's off. He's off. No, not a problem, Matthias. Thank you for joining, and thank you for your presence to make these things work. So what are you saying? Initialize constructor from properties. Don't know what that just did. Why did it add 2? Don't need that. Add identity. What's it saying? Add the default identity configuration for the specified users and types. Add identity. Dun, dun, dun. We did say that there was a kind of a working sample. Let's have a look in here. Oh, hold on. There's more to it than what he's pasted in there, so I wonder if it was a formatting error. Let's put this in. What are you complaining about? Yes, we need models. Yes, we do. Blah, blah, blah. Why are you complaining? Does not contain a definition for... Well, let's take it out. And I don't know what you are, actually. So let's just take you out. Okay. And then what we need is the changes to the app settings.json to include this thing. So let's copy that and put this into the... That's the FTP. It's fine. So let's put this in here. And we don't need this one anymore because, well, we don't need it anymore. What are you complaining about? Expected a comma. Yes, you did expect a comma. So I'm going to give you a comma, you're going to get a comma, everybody gets a comma. Use development storage true. Save that. Let's go back to here and say .NET build. Yeah, so Frank, who knows? Don't know. Local DB didn't work. We install a full SQL Server Express instance, and by then initializing the SQL storage emulator to use that SQL Server Express instance, it started working, and then the Storage Explorer worked after that. Let's build that again, having saved the files. Okay. .NET run. What does this do? See, they're going to fail really badly. Oh, look at that. Object reference not set to an instance of an object. Create tables if not exist. I'm wondering whether... See that you're the second person to say that, Frank. That's exactly what Matthias said he'd done as well. And it just worked. So maybe that's what I need to do. I don't know. So now it's saying object reference not set to an instance of an object. So I'm wondering whether I need to give it a table. But I'm missing some magic sauce here. Remove all references to Entry. Add the default local connection string to the Azure Storage emulator in app settings. Table prefix can be left blank. Any text in here. Storage connection string is the Azure Storage connection string. Local mode can be left. So what's he done here? Not convinced that this is set up the way. You see, he's missed a part out again. So let's grab this. So this will need to change. So this here is not there. Connection string. I'm so confused as to what that is. Local DB, MySQL, MemSQL, local DB. So what is, who created that? And what do I need to create that as well? Local DB, so that doesn't make any sense to me. Still having that. I would have expected to give it a name. Use develop. What's this link saying? Great, that doesn't actually link to anything. Could be that installing through VS do some kind of magic. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's totally possible. Totally possible. So I suspect that this sample's sort of out of date, but it's also been updated 2 hours ago. So I'm confused by this part. I don't know if we want this connection strings or not anymore. Let's try it again. Create tables if not exist. Do I need to... How do I give it? That's the thing I'm missing, I think. What do I need to do? But that's the part I don't understand. Okay, but the whole point in what I'm trying to do is to remove the requirement for SQL Express or any other database. I want it to use Azure Storage. So I don't think I want to give it SQL Express. I want to tell it to use the... Maybe I need to give it the connection string to a table. So let's do devgep. How do I get a connection string to that table? And how do I put that into, you know what I mean? How do I put it into this thing over here? That's what I want to do. That's what I want it to do. But what I don't know is how to access it. Possibly. Because I would have thought maybe it's something in here. Local. See, what's this? It's expecting that there's an Azure Table Storage, identity Azure Table, identity configuration, storage connection string. Where do I get that puppy from? I haven't got one of those. I need that. Oh, it is there. So use development storage through. What does that mean? What does that mean? copy. Let's do a quick Google. And if I don't, I'm going to get to 1:15 and then I'm going to stop. So Frank's saying that means use the emulator. Okay, fine. So why is it not working? Connection string includes the authentication information, blah, blah, blah. Storing your connection string. The easiest way to connect to the storage emulator from your application is to configure a connection string that uses that. Okay, great. Right, but this thing, I think, Frank, this thing that I'm trying to run should create Azure tables if not exists. So it should, based on that connection string, can create them. But it's not doing that. Because I want it to create the tables for me. And that's the thing that's failing. It's saying object reference not set to an instance of an object within the create tables if not exist. So it's trying to create the user store tables in my locally running Azure emulator, and it's failing. And that's the part I don't understand. Did you run in debug? Not yet. No. What would you hope that it would show us if I run in debug? .NET Core. So don't know if I can debug into this any further, but let's have a look and see if there are F11 into it. Let's see if it will let me get any further. No. Let's have a look and see. Azure Table. User Store v2. Is there any open issues currently? Cannot add claims, table names in store. Nothing obvious about. So then create table if it doesn't exist. Create tables if not exist is in there. So something in here is causing a null reference exception. So it's attempting to create the role table, the user table, and the index table. And one of those is barfing. Did I miss anything on the guide that he's got here? So I added in this guy. Did that. I don't know if I added that one in right enough. Let's see if there was anything extra in his running instance. I don't think I added that one in. Let's maybe... Yeah, I didn't have that one, look. Let's put another overload. I did initialize the Azure Storage emulator. Yes, I did, Frank. That part I did do. That part I did do. Then the startup, we did all that stuff. And then did the app settings.json. Okay, let's give this another try. It's taking longer to fail. Ooh. Oh, look at that. Ooh. What did that do? Let's have a wee refresh of this puppy. Expand, 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 expand. Gasp! So we've got some user tables now. This shouldn't have anything in it. Look at that. Right. So if we go back over here and go back to our local host 5001, what does it do? Dang it. No service for type user manager has been registered. Oh, we haven't even got that far, Maurice. I wouldn't worry about that too much. Why is it running, Christoph? So I had missed an overload for the application DB context. So by adding that in and then rerunning it, it made it work. So now we're at a point where it is claiming that I haven't registered a service for the user manager. So does that mean that there is something else that I need to do? So what have we got in here? User manager. No, there's no reference to user manager in there. Let's have a quick look here and see. User manager. I would have thought so, yes. I would have thought so, Frank, that's where it would have been. But there he didn't do it. So I'm confused as to home controller and would need to change user manager to use the correct application. Maybe it's I. So we're talking about the controllers here. So it's using... There's nothing specifically in that home controller though. Are you talking about the view? Oh, you're maybe talking about the shared portion of the view, which has got... Maybe not. User manager. In here. Identity user. Would that need to be... Oh, but where's that getting set? Because that's a generated class. So where's that being set up? Where's that getting... That's where I was. So you think here, this would be application user rather than identity user? Like this? Oh, we're past my deadline now. past my deadline, but let's give it a bottle. Good shout. That was Kim that mentioned that. Let's see what happens when we go over here. Oh, the login page doesn't work anymore. Register page doesn't work anymore. Broken something. None of these are working anymore. Oh no, hold on. Privacy works, but this register no longer works, and this login no longer works. But that, when you say I need a controller for that, it was before switching over. So unless those controllers were dynamically generated as a result of having, or maybe that's what you're saying. So are we saying that those in the previous version that used not this one, you're saying that it was adding a component at runtime? So you're saying I would need to specifically add those in. And that's certainly possible that I need to do that. But it is, or it was there. Because this is where it's trying to get to, but those things don't work anymore, apparently. Okay, so that's for a different day then. So it looks like we're going to have to do some more work there. So let's have a quick look at the sample and see what he's got in these views. So he's got a controller here. He does. He specifically has an account controller, which I don't have. And that then uses the instance of the user manager and the sign-in manager. So I may need to borrow those. If you could look into that, Frank, I would appreciate that. So I think this is kind of a natural stopping point. I don't feel I'm going to get much further than this tonight, or rather, I'm not going to get much further than this. Kind of need to stop. But it sounds as though I'm going to need to add in some more stuff to make it work. So everything that was working before was working because I was using the built-in component. It was giving me the views and controllers to make things work. Now that I don't have those, I need to override those and provide them specifically for the new instance of the application user that I was now using, which is coming from Azure Storage. The next stream, Frank, will be on Friday. It's a short stream on Friday lunchtime. So my time from between 12 and 1. So I don't know if you are around at that point. That would be good. And I need to figure out how to... So maybe what we should do is borrow this sample as well and see how it works. Because it does look like it's being kept up to date. So maybe we'll try running these samples and see how they work, and then we can borrow what he's doing with the controllers, and let's just check what licenses. It's all under MIT as well, so we can just credit. We can just give him a nod back once, and it is being updated. Or it was updated 39 minutes ago. So it appears to still be doing stuff. So, yeah. This project is the what I'm trying to use. This is the code that is making the website run against running against an Azure storage table rather than using the default, which is a Sqlite database. So this was just a NuGet package reference that I added in, and that's what gave me the additional application user, and what then created these tables for me. So it created the index, it created roles, and it created users. But I feel that there's more work to do in here to make all of that work. So I'm going to need to play with that some more. Okay, but so this secret project that we're working on, myself and Matthias, code name devgep, is that what I called it? Yeah, it was. Will continue, and hopefully I will have on Friday, we'll give it a try and see if we can't get this to run. I feel there might be a little bit more work than I expected to make it all work, but that's okay. I just wasn't necessarily expecting that based on the README that was here. There was no mention of, unless I missed it, there was no mention of creating additional views and controllers to make all of this stuff work. So maybe I missed something there, but that's fine. We can go back to it. Okay, that'd be great. Thank you, Frank. If you could do that, I appreciate that. I'm going to probably play with this offline as well and see if I can't figure out what's going on, and then come back on the stream to show how we kind of get it working. Okay, but that's it from me tonight. I appreciate you all being here as usual. I'm very appreciative of everyone joining in and taking the time to spend this couple hours with me. Next Friday, or this Friday stream, will be a continuation of this because I kind of want to get this working, and then likely it will be the same thing on next Monday. That might no, I should be next Monday should be okay. I'm traveling down to London next week to go to Chef Conf in London, so it's midweek though. So both streams should be, assuming that I can get the okay from my better half. Both streams next week should be okay, but I will keep you all up to date via the usual Twitters and GitHub. Okay, so that's it from me. Thank you very much, and we shall talk to you all soon. Thank you very much.